My patient, Mr. XYZ, a 50-year-old Hindu farmer residing at Vashi, hailing from UP, came to NMMC on 20th of August 2020 with chief
Mhm.
complaints of hematuria since 1 month and lump in the left loin since 1 month. My patient was apparently alright 1 month ago when he started to have painless hematuria, which progressed from 1 to 2 episodes per day to every time he micturates. The blood is mixed throughout the stream. He also noticed accidentally a lump in his left loin, which was insidious in onset, about the size of an orange, hard, globular, and painless. He has not noticed any significant increase in its size in the past 1 month. There is no history of trauma. There is no history of
Okay.
pain at renal angle.
uh, just, just, just a minute, Riddhi.
Yes,
Now, once
sir.
you complain the chief complaints and come to ODP, as we have discussed earlier for all the cases, you need to give more details about the ODP. Now, these complaints are present in how many days you mentioned?
Yes, sir, since 1 month.
1 month. Okay. So, in 1 month, what all things did he take that you need to mention? Or suppose he didn't consult anyone, he didn't take any specific medicines, that also you need to mention in the ODP. That because he was having that painless hematuria. Usually, the moment hematuria starts, patient will be alarmed and he will be a little anxious. What is happening with him? So he will consult his at least family physician. So one needs to be very you mentioned about the ODP that he visited his family physician to advise some medicines, or he just remained like that only. So please enlighten us about that.
Uh, no, sir, he has not received any treatment for his complaint.
Okay. Because lump, see, Miss, remember in the exam also, for lump patient may wait. That is a possibility. Because again, it is a painless lump and it is progressing though rapidly, but it is present there as such. However, hematuria, the moment patient will have or in any individual will have, it will make the particular individual nervous. So passage of blood, that too again painless, is a little bit uh, point of botheration for the patient. So it's very important that you mention that if at all, or to rather ask some direct questions that did you consult any family physician? Did you take any medicines to stop it? Because 1 month it is going on and it is progressing as per your history. So patient will be having feeling a lot of weakness or other problems with it. So you present accordingly, which will be more of a practical type. Fine.
Okay, sir.
Okay, then proceed.
So there is no history of trauma. There is no history of pain at renal angle with fever and pyuria. There is no history of increased frequency with dysuria and low grade fever. There is no history of any loin pain, abdominal distension, and painful micturition. There is no history of change in bowel habits and hematochezia. There is no decrease in size of lump after micturition. No history of colicky pain radiating from the loin to groin. There is no history of thorotrast exposure, COX, or COX contact. There are no similar complaints in the family.
Okay. So now in this negative history, what all things you have ruled out?
So, first of all, organ wise, I would like to rule out the descending colon. So, for that, I have asked about any change in bowel habits or any hematochezia. Then for pyonephrosis, I asked about the pain at renal angle with fever and pyuria. For TB, I asked about any COX or COX contact, increase in frequency, dysuria, and low grade fever. For hydronephrosis, I asked about abdominal distension and decrease in size of the lump after micturition.
Hydronephrosis, why patient will have abdominal distension?
Um,
Again, one practical important point that mention hydronephrosis before pyonephrosis. See, things will progress slowly for the individual. Immediately, patient won't present with initially pyonephrosis. So first mention with the hydronephrosis. So what are the features of a patient with a hydronephrosis?
so there would be a lump which would decrease in size with micturition in case there is a Dietz crisis kind of a presentation.
Okay, that is one thing. Otherwise, patient will have a lump in the renal angle, correct?
Groin.
Okay. What else patient will have?
So patient can have painful micturition.
Fine. Painful micturition. Okay. Then, will there be any pain?
So if the renal capsule is distended, there can be loin pain as well.
There will be actually. Okay. And patient may or may not have fever. That is also a possibility. So, because of the stretch on the gyrotous fascia, there will be pain, which is a typical pain, which is a fixed renal pain against a ureteric colic, which is a migratory pain. So in hydronephrosis, what is important you to know to mention that there is a fixed renal pain at a renal angle. There is a fullness, or patient may perceive a small swelling in that renal angle, and there can be altered urinary pattern, which may be hematuria or some pyuria type picture, mixed picture, or some even high colored urine with a lot of burning sensation initially for the patient. So start with the common simple symptoms, and then you can progress to other things like Dietz crisis, what you mentioned correctly, that it will go down post voiding, so that you can mention, that is fine, but that is later on little. So first finish hydronephrosis, don't go to pyonephrosis, okay? Like that. Follow
Yes,
the
sir.
sequence, it will sound much better. Next.
So now history of complications. There
Hmm.
is no history of rapid weight loss. There is no history of bone pain or pulsatile bony swellings or repeated fractures. There is no history of persistent cough with hemoptysis. There is no history of fever, puffy face and buffalo hump, gynecomastia, or yellow discoloration of skin and sclera.
Okay.
There is a history of hypertension.
Hmm. Okay. So basically, patient is not
The
having much of complications, correct?
no, sir.
Okay, fine. Proceed.
The patient has not received any treatment previously for his complaints. Now the past history. Patient is a known case of diabetes and hypertension since 10 years and regularly takes medicines for the same. There is no history of Cox contact, or bronchial asthma. There is no history of any surgeries in the past. Personal history. Sleep and appetite are normal. Bowel habits are normal.
Yes. Go on.
Urination is associated. Patient is immunized as per schedule. Family history. There is no history of similar illness in the family. So
Okay.
now general examination.
Regarding the urinary complaints, any issues or urinary habits or
So
micturition?
there is hematuria and there is a slight discomfort while micturition.
Okay. Okay. Fine. But there is no burning sensation as such.
No, so there was just mild discomfort while micturition.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So from history, what do you feel patient is having?
Taking the age into consideration, and since it is a hard lump, so I would be thinking of a carcinoma presentation.
Okay. So for that, what etiology did you ask?
Sir, I asked for thorotrast exposure,
Hmm.
and even diabetes and hypertension are risk factors for RCC.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, I asked for any similar complaints in the history because there can be certain syndromes associated with RCC. So there
Mm-hmm.
can be a familial inheritance.
Okay. 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 What else patient will have if it is RCC?
So patient would have the symptoms like weight loss or decrease in appetite, but he is not having those in my case.
what is the classical triad of RCC?
So hematuria, flank lump, and pain.
Okay. And what are the atypical symptoms of RCC?
So RCC can cause syndromes like Stauffer syndrome, which can present with hepatic dysfunction. There can be hypercalcemia related complications. There can be gynecomastia. There can be fever of unknown origin as a paraneoplastic syndrome.
See, you classify your answer into typical symptoms and atypical symptoms. Then there are special situations like Stauffer's, and there are paraneoplastic syndromes. So if you categorize, because this is a classical case with a lot of symptomatology, typical, atypical, paraneoplastic, Stauffer's, etc. And again, primary and secondary symptoms. So all this will constitute the etiology and the other part of the history. So if you include everything, then eventually you will rule out, or you mention, or you will come to a conclusion that yes, patient has RCC as such. So you need to ask very focused and specific the patient. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Then on examination.
General examination. My patient is conscious, cooperative, and well oriented to time, place, and person. Temperature is afebrile. Pulse rate is 72 per minute. Respiratory rate is 18 cycles per minute. BP is 140 by 90 mmHg. He is moderately built. Pallor is present. Icterus, cyanosis, clubbing, lymphadenopathy, and pedaledema are absent. Skull, skin, and spine are normal. Local examination. The patient was examined in the standing, right lateral, and prone positions.
Okay.
There is a solitary, well-demarcated lump in the left renal angle, approximately 5 by 5 centimeter, globular with a smooth surface, and moves slightly with respiration. The overlying skin appears stretched. There are no scars, sinuses, or dilated veins. No visible peristalsis or cuff impulse. There is no enlarged left supraclavicular lymph node. Umbilicus and hernial orifices appear normal. External genitalia are normal.
Okay.
So now palpation.
Palpation.
On palpation, there is no
Inspection
local rise in temperature.
Because inspection you are done only in one position, standing. In supine and lateral position, any change in the findings? Like we discussed last time.
No, sir.
See, now here important, as we may have discussed in earlier cases also, patient has a retroperitoneal swelling, correct? So here, rather than making patient supine, you have to make patient prone.
Prone, yes, sir.
And see for the reduction. Okay. So now the lump is present. So when patient lies prone, is it reducing on its own? That you need to figure out. So accordingly, you will come to know that yes, it is a retroperitoneal structure and it is slightly reducing or decreasing in size. One thing. Okay. Second thing, in lateral position, will it change? Laterally?
No, sir.
Patient has swelling in the left loin, correct?
Yes.
Or left renal angle. So you make patient lie down on the right lateral position.
Right lateral.
So left will come up. Fine. So left hand you can see whatever it is having, whether it is protuberance or whether it is getting reduced or what as such. So is there any change? That is what I'm asking. In the size of the swelling. When you take and different positions, standing, say supine, not supine, here is prone and right lateral actually.
No, sir.
Actually, if you can mention a little bit change, that will be much better.
Okay,
by
sir.
keeping
So I
it
should mention
same.
that in the prone position, there is a slight decrease in size.
Yes, you can mention that.
Okay.
See, there is no fixity as such, no. It's not like a breast tumor, and it is fixed to the pectoral fascia, or where you have to do Auchincloss maneuver and things will change. So here, after, because it is engulfing maybe into till gyrotous fascia only, so there is a possibility. So you may mention that yes, it is getting slightly reduced in size, when patient lies or is in a prone position. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Then on
On
palpation.
palpation, there is no local rise in temperature or tenderness. All findings of inspection are confirmed. There is a single hard, non-tender globular mass in the left renal angle, approximately 5 by 5 by 3 centimeter, which is bimanually palpable and ballotable with a smooth surface with distinct and well-felt margins.
How do you do bimanual palpation?
So I placed one hand posteriorly and one hand anteriorly over the left loin, and I tried to like feel the kidney with both the hands.
No, what do you do? But you cannot feel the kidney from both the hands, no? So that is what you do, no? What do you do?
So the posterior hand would push the kidney anteriorly, and the anterior hand would feel for any enlargement.
Okay. That is called as what? What are we doing actually here? What we are checking?
So we are checking the ballotability and the bimanual palpation.
Correct. So ballotment, what we are checking. Now, how we're supposed to do ballotment? You mentioned partly correct, not like that is wrong, but you need to more precisely tell how we do it. See, these are the two hands. Okay. Now in between two hands there is the abdomen, and suppose in lower part there is a kidney that is enlarged in size. So unless the kidney is grossly dilated, it won't be palpable simultaneously to the hand which is anterior to abdomen and hand which is at a renal angle. Fine? Unless the kidney is grossly dilated and hydronephrotic. So, but at that time, there won't be any ballotability because it is obviously palpable on both sides. Ballotability is applicable only when the kidney is not so enlarged so as to, it is palpable by both hands. Okay, you got the point? So what we do here, now you keep one hand stationary and with other hand, you push from below and the kidney will get tossed and it will hit the upper hand or the pilot hand which is stationary and come back. Same way we have to do again maybe 2 or 3 times just to confirm and it is really a ballotable structure because against the pedicle it will move. Okay, so it is very important that ballotability positive means it is not so enlarged swelling. If ballotability is negative, then the swelling is quite enlarged in size or in the surrounding structures. Fine?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, then proceed. Next.
So fingers can be insinuated between the costal margin and the lump, and it moves slightly with respiration. It is non-pulsatile and there is no cough impulse or reducibility. There is no renal angle tenderness. The kidney is not separately palpable. There is no hepatosplenomegaly. The external genitalia and hernial orifices are normal. Supraclavicular lymph node is not palpable.
Okay, fine. So now what is the diagnosis, Riddhi?
So my patient, Mr. XYZ, a 50-year-old male, is probably suffering from renal cell carcinoma of the left kidney.
Okay, fine. So now what will you do? How will you manage your patient? Next.
So I would like to do certain investigations. First, I would do a CBC, wherein I can see anemia due to the hematuria, or I can see polycythemia as a paraneoplastic syndrome. I would like to see for the WBC count to rule out any infection. I would like to see the ESR and the hematocrit. Then, so I would like to do a urine routine and microscopy to look for RBCs, pus cells, any microbes or any casts. Then I would like to do an RFT to see the serum creatinine and the blood urea nitrogen and to see the functioning status of the kidney. Sir, I would like to do an LFT, like to rule out any hepatic dysfunction due to like Stoffer syndrome or anything. So then I would like to do serum electrolyte wherein I may get hypercalcemia as a paraneoplastic syndrome.
Okay. Then
So then
yes.
radiologically, I would like to do a USG abdomen to look for the any lymph nodes or involvement of any surrounding structures and the size of
Okay.
the kidney.
Mm-hmm.
So then I would like to do a contrast enhanced CT scan to look for
Okay.
again for the kidneys and the any adjacent structure involvement or any lymph
Okay.
node. It would
See,
also
again, remember, ultrasound is not the investigation of choice for the retroperitoneal structures like pancreas, kidney, etc. Unless the kidney is grossly hydronephrotic. Okay. You may do a lateral ultrasound just at the renal angle and in the left hypochondrium, if at all, just to pick up anything if abnormal. But rest it will be difficult unless it is grossly enlarged. And here in this case, it is not grossly enlarged. It is little bit enlarged, but not grossly enlarged. So usually we not pick up anything much significant. So what it will pick up?
or any lymph node.
Okay, lymph node. What is
Sir, any abscess or any fluid collection in the kidney.
abscess or okay? Basically, any
Yes.
perinephric collection. Okay, so it can be anything. It can be a uroma or a post-traumatic hematoma, or you are saying pyelonephrosis, so like that, pus collection or perirenal abscess. Anything is possible. Fine. What else?
Uh, so then for staging, I would like to do a PET CT.
PET CT. Okay. Or HRCT. Simple. PET CT is not available everywhere.
So, uh, and so
Yes.
inferior vena cavogram for any IVC extension.
See, Riddhi, for this now you can do simple test. That is a Doppler, a renal Doppler. Simple thing what you can do is a renal Doppler, so that it will pick up the pedicle, renal vein, renal artery, and renal vein you can trace till the IVC and pick up any thrombus if at all. Fine.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
So you can do, see, remember in the exam still whatever is available freely in the nearby vicinity, and it is there as such.
Okay.
See, PET CT is not available. Even in Mumbai, not every center has PET CT. Very limited centers have PET CT and very big centers. So again, it is a very costly affair. So if at all you want to do a PET CT, it is a specific that consultant's choice whether he or she needs an additional investigation. Otherwise, HRCT chest, I mean HRCT abdomen and pelvis is sufficient to stage the disease. Okay. Now, how will you classify RCC?
So the staging.
Yes.
So the TNM staging.
Mm,
T1A. Tx is tumor not ascertained. T0 is no tumor.
mm,
T1A is
mm,
a tumor restricted to the pole less than equal to 4 centimeter in size. T1B is a tumor restricted to the pole between 4 to 7 centimeter in size. T2 is a tumor restricted to the pole more than equal to 7 centimeter in size.
mm,
T3A is a tumor with involvement of the uh, uh, perirenal tissue, but not the Gerota's fascia.
mhm,
T3B is involvement of the renal vein or IVC below the diaphragm.
mhm,
T3C is IVC above the diaphragm involvement. And
mhm.
T4 is involvement of the ipsilateral adrenal gland or extension into the Gerota's fascia.
Okay. Okay. Now, which is the first natural barrier to the tumor expansion?
So the Gerota's fascia.
Correct. Correct. So, like that, in testicular tumor, what is the first natural barrier?
So the tunica vaginalis.
Okay. Tunica vaginalis is actually this sac in which the fluid gets collected, the classical natural barrier is a tunica albuginea, actually. Okay. But here it is mainly the Gerotus fascia acts as a first natural barrier towards the tumor expansion. So the tumor is limited to the Gerotus fascia. You should be a little bit happy that yes, you can do a better justice to the patient. Okay. Next, what we'll do? What you mentioned for PET CT. Now, why do you want to do a PET CT? What is the function of PET CT? Tell me.
So for staging.
No, but why PET? What is PET?
So it is a positron emission topography. So in that, a compound called 18-FDG is used. So it is accumulated. It is taken up by the rapidly dividing cells, the metabolically active cells.
Okay.
So we can detect any metastases.
So basically, PET is a one thing. It is a dynamic investigation, and it will pick up many places. The tumor location is not just limited to kidney, but at various locations. So usually, PET CT is done to screen a patient rather than stage the patient. Okay, HRCT of course is a must as such. What else is useful? I mean, a part of HRCT which is very useful. It also serves the function of dash dash, which we used to do as a separate investigation earlier. What is that?
Chest X-ray.
No. HRCT abdomen, as I said, abdomen pelvis for RCC staging. It also gives you much information about the renal system, which we otherwise would have gathered with some other investigation, which is now not that commonly used. Which is the investigation?
The intravenous urogram.
Yes, correct. Intravenous urogram. So it also serves as a function of a CT IVU. HRCT abdomen and pelvis, plain plus contrast, always tell. It serves dual function. There is the morphology, and it also serves as a CT IVU, which is a dynamic investigation. So we don't have to do a separate intravenous urography for RCC. Okay? Most important. Okay, now suppose everything is done. Suppose this is say a T2 lesion stage wise. So now what will you do? Not much of a metastasis and not much of a say tumor thrombus. So what you will offer to the patient?
So surgically, I would like to go for a nephron sparing surgery.
Nephron sparing surgery. Okay.
Partial nephrectomy. Then I would go for immunotherapy with VEGF inhibitors. And so in this case, there would be no role of any chemotherapy or radiotherapy.
Correct. Immunotherapy, which one you said?
VEGF inhibitors, sorafenib.
And?
So mTOR inhibitors.
Which one?
mTOR inhibitors.
Okay. So what is the prognosis of the patient?
Sir, so I would expect a 60 to 70% 5-year survival. Stage 1 and 2.
Stage 1 is how much?
Stage 1 and 2 is 65 to 70% survival. Stage 3 is 40% and stage 4 is 10%.
Okay. So there's a possibility up to 65-70% patient may improve or survive for some 5-year time. Okay. So again, important in this case is as for like any abdominal lump, you have to mention only thing being a retroperitoneal structure, you have to give a prone position to the patient and light lateral position. Examination will remain same. Don't miss any obvious points. Then investigations, you mentioned serially proper investigations. First biochemical, then the radiological, and lastly you mentioned, if at all, specialized investigation like you mentioned PET-CT. Don't mention PET-CT as a first investigation of choice, as a new gold standard. So HRCT is must, yes, certainly. And of course, we should know the staging system for that particular organ and the treatment options. So surgery, of course, form the mainstay for the treatment of RCC. However, the other options, CT-RT is of no use, but yes, immunotherapy is of use for that. So you have to mention about interferons and interleukin alpha 2, all these parameters things, and if at all you know the examples, it will be beneficial. So Tattoo advised has been given to him or her. Everything you need to mention in that. So it is little more exhaustive. So you have to mention in detail in ODP, and then you go to the etiological factor. That's fine. And etiologically also, you first rule out any benign condition, then you go to malignant condition, and lastly go to metastatic conditions. So don't jump here and there continuously. Now this will happen only when you're presenting regularly on a regular basis. So once you present it, for example, now Riddhi has presented. So next time when she presents some other case, she'll be more confident, and that entire tuning will be much finer for that. That is the importance of presenting the cases here, and we will understand how much you can recollect. Now, unfortunately, even your prelim also, there won't be any face-to-face viva as per university guidelines. Otherwise, it would have been much beneficial to you all. That individual question answering makes a lot of difference than just writing papers and scanning and sending. I'm not happy with that particular pattern, but it is, I mean, little bit unfortunate on your part as a student, because because in the exams, I hope it will be say face-to-face. So in that, then again, it will be difficult for people who have not spoken at all in all these years. So try to present more and more, then only you will open up in the exams. That will be very important. Because once you present at a stage, say half an hour, 40 minutes, you'll come to know what all points are missing. Even if your written, it is there in front of you, still you will miss certain important points. So that we don't want to happen. That once natural flow will come to you in your presentation, that is the mark that yes, you have succeeded well in the exams, and you will be happy at the end of the exam. And you will know that yes, you have enjoyed the exam, and you will certainly score nicely in it. And obviously not to make any silly mistakes. Because again, I'm telling you, at MBBS level, nobody tries to fail anyone. It is you who have to make any effort, if at all, for failures. So you don't talk anything that is not fitting into overall picture of the given case, and mention always what is obvious and logical and most common. And then you mention the rarest of rare. Like Riddhi mentioned PET-CT. PET-CT is a good investigation. Yes, it is advised at many centers, but the center should have PET-CT. Now, tomorrow she goes to practice at some other center where there's no facility. So then what to advise? Go to some other center and do PET-CT, or you give at least HRCT. So HRCT plain plus contrast serves a very good function. Unless you are anticipating metastatic disease, at that time PET-CT will make a very specific exception. Otherwise, no need to even directly jump for a PET-CT. Right? And the basic parameters are also, of course, important. Patient's complete hemogram, urine nutrient microscopy, renal function tests, liver function test to rule out Stoffer syndrome, and other electrolytes and other even blood group of the patient. Then, if you are doing really well, then they ask about the etiology, the little bit other points about the pathological aspects, what different patterns you get, what types of pictures you get, and of course, here the presentation is a big part, as we have discussed earlier. It is the primary symptoms, typical symptoms, atypical symptoms, paraneoplastic symptoms, Stoffer syndrome, etc. So it's a big area to discuss, and it will again remain focused if you get such a simple case. So when the case is there, and if you want to mention with a DD, always start with the kidney first, then you go to the descending colon, etc. later on. So it is go into that logical sequence that will be helpful. Okay. But yes, you have presented nicely, Riddhi. Do you have any questions as such? Okay. Ashish, anyone has any questions regarding the presentation or any specific point? So this is one more type of case of a lump in abdomen. Like last time, one girl presented on the right iliac fossa. Meera presented, I think, and the right iliac fossa lump, correct? Ileocecal tuberculosis. So that is again a one classical case. This is also one of our classical case what Riddhi presented today on retroperitoneal tumor as such. So two cases we have covered, which is good actually. Next time we can present other systems also, like thyroid, varicose veins, anything else you want to do that we will discuss.
All right, sir.
Yes, any questions?
Sir, no one has written any question. So one question was that, are we having part 1, part 2 for the exam or not?
What?
As in paper 1 and paper 2 for surgery?
Yeah, paper 1, paper 2, yes.
So both of them on the same day or it will be different days?
Same day. 9 to 12 and 1 to 4.
Okay, sir. All right.
Yeah.
That's
okay. Yeah. You can just record the attendance
one
and give it.
Is, what is Stauffer syndrome?
What happened?
What is Stauffer syndrome?
Okay. Let
liver dysfunction due to interleukin 6. So there would be rise in bilirubin and ALP.
Okay. So what these patients have usually is deranged liver function tests. Okay. There is a leukopenia. There is fever. Usually these patients have fever, and there is a lump in renal angle. This is classically a complex which is of Stauffer syndrome. Now, what is the practical implication or importance of Stauffer syndrome? That after doing a radical nephrectomy, all these symptoms disappear. So, absence of Stauffer syndrome post nephrectomy is a good prognostic indication. So, it also serves as a prognostic indicator. So, post surgery, all the symptoms will disappear. The LFT will come back to normal, leukopenia will improve, fever will disappear because of course the tumor is gone, and of course the lump is gone in the renal angle or loin. So that way it is of the great importance that all the symptoms will disappear. So once all the symptom complexes disappeared, Stauffer syndrome disappeared, then it is a good outcome for the patient. That is the importance of knowing a Stauffer syndrome. And that is why LFT is important as one of the investigations of choice. Okay.
Any more questions? I don't think so.
Okay, then you take the attendance and give it to madam. Fine?
Sure.
Sure. Thank you. Bye.